we shall take a look at the program which we had examined a little briefly in the last video session. Now we shall look at each line a little more in depth so you get a better idea of what are the different components of a C++ program. So the very first line refers to the comments or the documentation section. The documentation section or the comment section is important because later on, after a few months or years, if you come to back to the same program, you may not understand your own code because human mind tends to forget. By having comments, it's possible to easily understand the code. That's number one. Number two, a lot of times you do the work, you move from one company to other, a new person comes in. He needs to understand that particular code so that he or she can maintain, make changes to that code and it becomes useful. You need to understand that code is for people like me and you to understand. Sorry, the comments are for people like me and you to understand what the program is all about. The comment does not get converted into any instructions because it doesn't make sense to execute a comment. It is removed by a software called as a preprocessor. There are just two types of comments in C++. One is a single line comment. It starts with slash forward two forward slashes. Everything after that is a comment on that particular line. If you want to have a multi-line comment, you will begin with a forward slash star and end with a star forward slash. So anything between this is a comment. So if I put something from this forward slash star till here for star forward slash, this entire thing becomes a comment. Now let's take a look at the linker or the preprocessor directives. Now there is a software I told you called as the preprocessor. What the preprocessor does is whenever it sees this particular file iostream.h, mat.h, it opens that file and copies it into your program. Why does it copy it into your program? Your program also known as the source code. The reason being it contains prototype or model declarations of functions like cout, square root, cin, cos, sin and so on. So it contains function and variable declarations used by your variable program. So preprocessor is a software which opens up this header files and puts it into your these particular files. Now examples of preprocessor directives are hash include iostream.h. This contains the declaration of output function cout, cin and so on. Mat.h contains declaration of functions like square root, log, sine, cosine and so on. So this is all about the linker or the preprocessor. Now, if you see this particular declaration hash define, this also is managed by this preprocessor software. So what it does is wherever pi is found in your program, it is going to be replaced with 3.1415. So preprocessor does a search and replace on pi. So wherever pi occurs, it's going to be replaced by 3.1415. Now, let's come to the other parts of your program. Let's take this fellow out. So this 3.142 or 3.1415, this is known as a macro because wherever this fellow is found, it is replaced with this fellow. So at all occurrences, it is replaced in the program. The advantage of this is suppose I change the value of pi from 3.1415 to 14151617. I don't have to go and change it at every place in the program. The preprocessor will look for pi and replace it with the new value in all the places. So this is also known as an alias for a value or a variable. Then next, there is something called as global variables. Generally, you have main as one function. There could be number of other functions your program is going to use. So if you declare a variable above line 5, between 4 and 5, creating space of course, so that variable can be used in this main block. That means between this braces, between these flower braces, as well as any other function in this particular file. So that's why it's live or scope. That means it is accessible. Think of it like a public tab. It can be used by anybody. Private tab can be used only by me, you, or whoever owns it. So any function in the program can use that particular variable. Now, the main function. The main function indicates the beginning of execution of the program by the compiler. So starting from the main, the execution really starts. So the first statement after main, the execution commences. Be sure to understand there can be only one main function in your program. There cannot be multiple main functions. Next, braces. So this indicates a block of statements beginning with this and ending with this. So these are all block of statements. So these are all statements belonging to this flower bracket. So all the statements in this flower bracket are executed one by one as the program is being processed. Now, let us look at the next aspect. The next aspect happens to be declaration of variables. Now, what are example of variable declarations? Variable declarations are memory locations which are used to perform calculations, store values, and so on. Examples of variable declarations are like this: integer radius, float or real number circumference, and area. These are all examples of declaring variables. So you can declare variables, you can declare constants, anything at the top. After that, you need to understand you can declare variables anywhere in your program, but only after declaring them above, then you can use them after that. You cannot use them before declaring. Now, look at all these lines of code from starting from 9 to 15. These are all lines which will get converted into machine language. Of course, everything gets converted into machine language, but these all get converted into machine language instructions. Once they get converted into machine language instructions, they get executed when you're running the program. So they always, each line will end with a semicolon. Semicolon indicates the end of one statement or one instruction. Here you can see this is an example. Cout is a function which is helping us to print this message. Scene is a function which is helping us to read this value. All right. So here I have used only cout and cin, but there could be numeral, there could be loops, there could be decision making like if, else, and so on in this particular program. Now, you need to understand C++ has a large collection of library functions. That means along with the language included in iostream.h, mat.h, I do not need to write code for calculating the square root, for printing data, for reading data and all. I can use built-in code provided as a part of the C library to do different things. For example, I can find how many characters in your name. I can convert your name from lowercase to uppercase. Okay, all these things are a part of the C++ library. So I hope this gave you an idea about what is the structure of a C++ program and what are the different components, and almost every program we're going to write from now on are going to have most of these particular components. So a lot of these will look a little odd to you since you're new to programming, but over a period of time, as you just keep typing, even if you have to look and type, just keep looking and typing. But important thing is keep typing it into a compiler and then run it. That's the only way you're going to learn programming. Don't get scared by errors in the program. That is habit. You'll come overcome and be able to learn.